She didn't raise her voice. She didn't throw a punch. She didn't even blink when the second drink splashed across her sleeve. Because the quiet woman in the corner booth wasn't there to fight. Harper Lane was there to observe. And the four men laughing at her had no idea they'd just embarrassed themselves in front of the one person who signs off on their deployment orders. Before we show you how their night unraveled in front of the entire base, ending in a command review that froze the room, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Tap like, hit subscribe, and turn on the bell icon, because sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one who lets you keep talking. Walker's Cove was always dim, like the place had quietly accepted being forgotten. It sat off the main highway outside Port Regent Naval Station, wedged between a shuttered laundromat and a seasonal crab shack that never opened on time. Wooden walls, a dead jukebox, floors softened by years of spilled beer and boot scuffs. No dress code, no loud music, no questions. Packed by 2,000 hours every night. Harper Lane didn't look like she belonged. At least not at first. Gray hoodie, black cargo pants, no patches, no makeup, no alcohol. Just a water with lemon and a plate of fries she hadn't touched in 20 minutes. She sat with her back to the wall, not the door. A detail most people never notice. Liam Carter, the bartender, passed by and quietly set a fresh glass of ice water on her table. No small talk, just a nod. Harper returned it with a slow, polite dip of her head. Thank you. Without inviting conversation. Nobody here knew her name, but her posture said enough. Straight without tension. Hands relaxed but never idle. Eyes calm but alert. The regulars gave her space. Even the retired ones. Harper hadn't spoken since she walked in. Then the quiet broke. For men entered like they owned the oxygen. Tan camis, sleeves rolled, dusty boots. Laughter 2 levels too loud. Temporary personnel. The type who had just enough time on assignment to get cocky. Not enough to learn manners. They took the high top in the center. The tallest one. Staff Sergeant Hayden Knox, broad-shouldered with a crooked grin and a scar under his left eye. Waved Liam over with 2 fingers. Rounds for the table. Top shelf. Welcome party. Welcome to what? Asked the smaller one with a twitchy leg, Corporal Jake Miller. To the only bar in 10 clicks that doesn't play country music. Joked the third, Specialist Troy Banner, dragging his stool back. The fourth, Private Ryan York, had already spotted Harper. 10 o'clock. Solo table. Civilian contractor, he muttered. Knox shrugged. Ghost recon, maybe. Or somebody's ex. Their laugh wasn't mean, just young, lazy, confident. Curious like wolves circling something they didn't understand. They kept their distance but kept glancing her way. No name, no background, just silence, and silence made them think they understood her. Harper didn't react. She lifted her glass, took a slow sip, and placed it back exactly in the center of the coaster. She looks like she's memorizing the exits, Banner murmured. Maybe she's waiting for backup, Knox chuckled. More laughter. What they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that Harper Lane was only still sitting there because she hadn't decided what she thought of them yet. She hadn't moved in 20 minutes. One hand rested beside her glass, thumb tapping a slow rhythm. Fries untouched. Phone ignored. Eyes on the muted news channel above the bar. By their third round, the group was louder. One mocked a commanding officer. Another bragged about a halo jump in Thailand, clearly exaggerated. Then it happened. Knox swung around mid-joke, over-gesturing. His boot clipped a loose chair leg, tilting his pint forward. Beer arced through the air and splashed across Harper's table. Half her fries soaked. Water glass tipped but didn't fall. A slow stream of beer dripped into her lap. The bar went silent for half a second. Then the laughter hit. Knox spun around, hands up. Whoa, my bad. Blame the chair, not me. Damn thing moved. Miller snorted. Maybe it's her fault, Banner added. Why sit so close to a combat zone? Harper calmly set her napkin down, lifted her water glass, repositioned it, and dabbed her lap. Calm, precise, unbothered. No glare, no tension, no reaction. That rattled them more than a punch would have. You good over there? Knox called out. Need a towel? Or maybe a sense of humor? Liam brought her a clean napkin and a fresh glass. Appreciate it, Harper said quietly, the first words anyone had heard from her. You're not gonna throw that one back at us? Miller teased. Harper gave him a single glance, then returned to the napkin. The tone shifted instantly. Her calm bothered them, her lack of outrage. The way she reorganized the table like she'd seen this 1,000 times. Like she was giving them rope. She's uptight, Banner muttered. She's writing a Yelp review, York said. 0 stars. Marine's too rowdy. The others laughed. Harper didn't move. She just shifted her chair. Not away from them, but to widen her field of view. Then she exhaled once and went back to the weather radar as if their storm never landed. By the 4th round, they were orbiting her like restless flies. Not directly, just enough to see if she'd crack. She didn't, so York stood up first, carrying a fresh drink with exaggerated care. Smirking at his friends, he wandered toward her. Truce drink, he offered. Harper didn't look up. He raised it higher, hovering near her elbow. Least I can do after drowning your fries. She glanced at the glass. No, thank you. Calm. Final. He set it down anyway. When she ignored it, he leaned closer. You're a mystery, you know that? From behind him, Knox called. Careful, York. She might be CIA. York smirked. Feels like we're all getting profiled right now. York grinned and jerked his thumb toward his friends. You hear that? I always figured I had good bone structure for a file photo. Then, far too casually, he nudged the drink forward. Tipped. Not violently, not obviously. Just enough to let a slow sheet of whiskey roll across Harper Lane's table, soaking the napkin she'd neatly folded and dripping onto the cuff of her sleeve. The table roared with laughter. Harper still didn't react. She just watched the spreading stain like it was the most predictable thing she'd seen all day. Liam Carter froze behind the bar, unsure how far to step in without escalating things. Harper rose. Smooth. Controlled. Her chair didn't scrape. She lifted the edge of her jacket to shake off the moisture, then walked. Not toward them, but toward the opposite side of the bar. An empty two-top against the wall. She sat again, this time with her back to the room. But before she fully turned away, she spoke one soft, even sentence over her shoulder. You should have spilled the first drink better. This one made it too obvious. The laughter stopped. York blinked. What? She didn't repeat it. At their table, Harris leaned in. Wait, what did she say? York shrugged. Something about the first drink being better. The quietest one, Davis, frowned. No, she said, we made it obvious. For the first time all night, the 4 men looked at each other with real uncertainty. Across the bar, Harper lifted the fresh glass Liam had placed for her, took a sip, straightened her jacket collar, and continued watching the muted TV, now showing base sports highlights. She never looked in their direction again. She didn't need to, because somehow, without raising her voice or touching a single one of them, Harper Lane had just changed the air in the entire room. Their table quieted, not all at once, but in awkward waves. York walked back to his seat with far less swagger. Harris crossed his arms and tried to reclaim the mood. She's got ice in her spine, he muttered. Maybe special forces? Buzzcut Wexler snorted. Contractor boots. Classroom type. Probably teaches safety training. Davis spoke up, voice low. She never looked at us like we were funny. Not once. Harris shrugged. Doesn't mean anything. Some people are just wired tight. Buzzcut laughed. Or she's hiding a dishonorable and praying nobody recognizes her. York didn't laugh this time. He wiped his hand with a napkin. The whiskey had soaked across his fingers. She moved tables after 2 spills, Davis said. Didn't flinch either time. She's avoiding a scene, Harris replied. That's not power. That's someone trying to stay invisible. York shook his head. No, that's someone who's done this before. Someone who knows exactly when to step out of the spotlight. Harris scoffed. If she was important, someone would have saluted, or she'd be with a detail. And she wouldn't be drinking water like a school teacher. Back near the wall, Harper stood. She adjusted her sleeve, folded a napkin, slid a few bills under the glass, and glanced once at the TV. A carrier landing on the USS Kingwell, wheels touching deck. Then she walked toward the exit. Calm, unbothered, finished. As she passed their table, none of the men spoke, until Harris leaned slightly toward her, voice low so only they would hear. Careful walking alone, sweetheart. You might bump into someone less patient. Harper stopped mid-stride. Not dramatic, just a pause. She turned her head enough to acknowledge him. Calmly, she said, "Funny thing about predators, Corporal. A beat. They're the easiest ones to track." Then she walked out. Davis exhaled. That was specific. Wexler shifted. She knew his rank. Harris tried to laugh. It didn't land. None of them noticed the older man at the end of the bar. Gray beard, command tattoos, sleeves rolled. He'd watched the whole encounter in silence. He simply picked up his phone, opened the base contacts list, and typed in the name Harper Lane, because he had a feeling she wasn't done. Not even close. 0630 the next morning. The admin wing of Port Regent Naval Station buzzed with the quiet efficiency only base command buildings ever have. Strong coffee, burnt toner, steel doors closing with the kind of authority that reminds you where you are. Behind a frosted glass door marked, Joint Operations Integration Office, clearance required. Someone signed the final approval on a schedule. Lieutenant Commander Rhea Lawson didn't wear her name loudly. Her uniform was crisp and simple. The gold seal trident on her chest said more than she ever needed to, and the black rectangular patch on her shoulder, no text, just an embedded chip, opened every secure door on base. The tablet in her hand displayed the finalized rotation for the upcoming task force integration phase. 56 personnel, 4 SEAL platoons, Marine recon elements, Yodi techs, cyber ops, command-level behavioral oversight, her department. A knock at the door. "Ma'am," a petty officer said, entering with a folder. Admin confirmed the 3rd Inter-Unit Attachment Team arrived yesterday. Their evaluation cycle begins this week. Lawson took the file. Names: Corporal Harris, Corporal York, Private Davis, Lance Corporal Wexler. Reported in after hours. There was a small problem in the admin notes, but Harper Lane, now Lieutenant Commander Lawson, signed the last line with her stylus. "Not yet," she said calmly. She handed the tablet back, closed the folder, and stood. Her posture was precise, controlled, and quiet. There was no urgency, only focus. "Confirm their unit lead knows they're attending the readiness cohesion brief this afternoon." "Yes, ma'am. They're scheduled." "Good. Make sure the seating is staggered. I don't want them sitting together." The petty officer blinked, surprised, then nodded. Understood. Harper left the room without another word, carrying nothing but a folded schedule in one hand and her ID band on the other. In the hallway, 2 instructors paused as she passed. "That's Lawson, right?" "Yeah." "Took over after Lieutenant Marquez. She's SEAL command qualified. 3 tours. Signals and extraction ops. No media record. Ghost file. She doesn't look like command. That's the point." Harper reached the glass overlooking the operations bay. Below, Marines ran ladder drills while SEALs practiced rotations. Sweat, commands, timing, all visible. Her reflection stared back at her. Civilian last night. Command today. Across the bay, she spotted the 4 men. Harris, York, Davis, and Wexler. Loud, confident, and painfully unaware. She didn't smile. She didn't react. She simply tucked the schedule into her pocket and waited for the afternoon. The readiness briefing room was square, windowless, and so gray it made even silence feel quieter. A long table stretched across the room. Front row for lead evaluators. Back row for operators and junior staff. A projector looped slides of chain of command, task objectives, expectations. Corporal Harris swaggered in first. Boots barely acceptable, uniform wrinkled, confidence cheap. York, Davis, and Wexler followed, masking mild hangovers with overconfidence. "Guess this is where they tell us to stop fighting with the Navy boys," York muttered. tossing his folder down. Maybe we're getting medals, Wexler joked. Davis stayed quiet. A few SEAL candidates in the corner watched them, smirking. Then the side door opened. No announcement. No sound except boots on the floor. Lieutenant Commander Harper Lane walked in wearing full uniform. Command patch visible. SEAL trident sharp against the fabric. Calm eyes scanning the room like she'd been there long before any of them. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Harris froze mid-smirk. York blinked. Davis whispered, "No way." Wexler leaned forward as if hoping he was mistaken. Harper set a single folder on the table and stood behind the head chair. "Good afternoon," she said. The room dropped 10 degrees. Today's session is a joint operational integrity evaluation. Cross-unit behavior and cohesion are under review for upcoming task force assignments. No raised voice. No authority forced. Just truth. Suddenly Marines straightened. Folders opened. Postures corrected. Harper turned a page. "You've each been assigned to temporary integrated teams. Your cohesion ratings will be submitted at the end of the week." She looked directly at Harris. Then York. Then Davis. Then Wexler. Not in anger, just recognition. A whisper moved through the SEALs in the back. "Oh damn! That's her." For the first time since walking in, Harris sat up straight. Like he couldn't remember how tall he was supposed to be. The circuit had 12 stations and 4-member teams. Each scenario was pulled from real operations. Field radio calibration under jamming. Gear reassembly blindfolded. Evac protocol under false fire alarms. Civilian interaction under restrictive rules. It wasn't designed to punish, but arrogance always paid the price. Harper stood at the dry erase board, marker in hand, tone calm as a surgeon calling vitals. "Team 3, she said. "Corporal Harris, Corporal York, Davis, Wexler. Station 6. They rose slower this time. "This is a personnel prioritization drill," she continued. 3 hostiles, 2 unarmed civilians, 1 wounded ally, 5-minute window. All command decisions will be logged. "We've run this scenario before," Harris muttered. Harper glanced up. "Then you'll be familiar with what failure looks like." No smile, just clinical truth. The SEALs leaned forward, not to interfere, but to watch. The timer beeped. The drill began. 2 minutes in, York misidentified the wounded ally and labeled him as a hostile. Wexler hesitated, then panicked, and ended up neutralizing one of the civilians with a training rifle. Harris started arguing mid-scenario. Davis tried to regroup them, but stress cracked his voice. At 4 minutes, the alarm buzzed. Harper clicked her pen. "Failure. Ma'am, we had conflicting data on the civilian," Harris began. "You had conflicting ego?" She cut in, without even looking up. The room froze. She handed their evaluation sheet to a nearby instructor and addressed the room. "We'll repeat the same drill at 15:30 hours. Those who pass will rotate to instruction. Those who fail will observe from the wall." York opened his mouth, then stopped. "Speak, Corporal," Harper said. "It's just, I didn't realize civilians were tracking our movement from last night." A few SEALs stiffened. Harper didn't blink. "Neither did I. Good thing I wasn't a civilian." The line hit harder than a weapon discharge. The silence after it lasted longer than the sentence. She continued assigning stations. And from that moment on, the room shifted. No jokes. No yelling. Everyone suddenly remembered what respect was supposed to look like. At the far end, a young tech operator whispered, "She really let them hang themselves." His team lead nodded. "That's command." Quiet correction. Back at the table, Harris rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly hyper-aware of the clipboard in Harper's hand. Wexler murmured, "She's not going to forget, is she?" Davis exhaled. "She doesn't need to remember. She already documented it." York sat still, finally realizing how far his voice had carried when the room wasn't laughing with him anymore. The memo. There was no dramatic announcement, just an internal memo. Subject, Reconduct Review Joint Integration Week 1. Time sent, 17:42. From Lieutenant Commander Harper Lane. to Base Adjutant CMDT, Reeves and Behavioral Oversight Subcommittee. No commentary, no CCs, just data. Attached was a concise evaluation of Team 3 timestamps, quotes, performance issues, and a note about their conduct at an off-duty establishment. Observed disrespect toward uninvolved party in public venue. Incident repeated in formal setting. Professionalism compromised. Behavior inconsistent with task force standards. By 2000 hours, Harris received a summons. York and Wexler were required too. Davis was not. They reported to Admin Wing B, JAG Review Annex. No guards, just envelopes waiting. Inside, Harris, formal citation for conduct unbecoming. Recommendation for temporary suspension from task force qualification. York, noted for inappropriate off-duty conduct. Mandatory reattendance of integrity sessions. Wexler, written reprimand for reinforcing unprofessional behavior. The tone wasn't angry, it was clinical. Harris stared at the letter. This is over a drink spill? The admin officer didn't look up. This is over your response to a correction. York folded his letter quietly. Wexler glanced toward the hallway where Davis stood untouched. Why isn't he in there? Harris demanded. Because he stopped speaking before it became a problem, the officer replied. The fallout. That night, the barracks bulletin listed schedule changes. Team 3's integration was paused. Harper Lane's name now appeared as instructor observation officer for 2 remaining drill weeks. No announcement, just a quiet shift. One only noticed by those who realized too late what they'd lost. In the after-hours gym, Davis tied his boots when Harper walked by. He hesitated, then spoke as she reached the door. Ma'am. She stopped. I didn't say anything when I should have at the bar. She met his eyes. But you didn't double down when you had the chance. He nodded. Ma'am, is this going to follow us? Only if it keeps happening. Then she walked out. The door closed with a soft click. Restraint reinforced, not authority flaunted. Walker's Cove. Walker's Cove hadn't changed. Same flickering sign. Same old bartender Liam, wiping the same warped counter. Same muted game on the TV. It was past 2100. The Friday crowd had thinned into quiet pairs and solitary drinks. Lieutenant Commander Harper Lane stepped inside without ceremony. No uniform, just dark jeans, a gray jacket, and boots that had seen salt water from places no one in that bar could pronounce. She didn't return to the same table. She didn't need to. At the bar, Liam slid her a glass of water with a lemon wedge. No questions asked. First, no one noticed her. Then Davis did from a high top in the back. He was the only one from the 4 present. Harris, York, and Wexler were nowhere in sight. Davis nursed a beer he wasn't finishing. No laughter, no bravado. He didn't approach, didn't wave. But when Harper's eyes met his just for a breath, he gave her the smallest nod, not apology, just acknowledgement. Harper returned it, enough to be seen, but not soft. He turned back to his drink. She moved to a seat near the far window, sipped her water once, leaned back and exhaled, like someone letting the tide recede. Not because the storm was over, but because she controlled how far it could reach. Liam stepped over quietly. Didn't think I'd see you back. Harper glanced at him. Didn't think I needed to stay away. He nodded, then gestured subtly toward Davis. That one's been quiet tonight. Didn't even order the usual. She looked briefly. Sometimes they learn. Sometimes they just pause. Liam nodded again. And you? Just came to finish my fries. That's all. No badge. No speech. No lingering. Just presence. She stayed 10 more minutes, paid in cash, and left a folded napkin on the bar. Liam didn't open it, just pocketed it respectfully. Outside, headlights passed on the far road. The harbor beyond was dark, save for blinking beacons on the horizon. Steady, deliberate, like someone remembering the way home without needing to chase it. And just like that, she was gone. The storm had passed, but the tide knew exactly where it had been. Would you have spoken in that bar, or waited for the right moment? Does calm leadership leave more impact than public retaliation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If you haven't already, hit like, tap subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss tomorrow's mission. Share this story with someone who still thinks silence is weakness. Your next operation is right on screen. Watch it now. I'll see you tomorrow.